One common thing in most speedruns is that you don't play it on English or Japanese. No, you play it on, what is it, Italian?
Italian.
I like it. So, yeah, this will be, like I already said, Legend of Spyro, The Eternal Night, GBA, any percent easy by CDRomatron. Let's go.
Right. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike, otherwise known as CDRomatron, and I guess we're just about ready to go. Are we ready on the timer?
Is the audio supposed to be like this?
That's a good question. What are you hearing?
Very little from the cam card.
I could load into a level real quick just so you can make sure that's okay.
Alright, it actually seems okay for now.
If I just do this and load into like hi Bob. Yeah, so if yeah, this is about the normal sound.
Alright, that's
fine. Okay, how do I... The real question is, how do I navigate out of this?
The tribulations of
running in different languages.
I think I can do... That isn't... Yeah. Oh, you do it from the options menu. Yeah, this game hides it. Even in English it was hard to find.
So,
right, weird. Okay. Let me make sure I've got the right difficulty selected. That's right. Okay, so start in 3, 2, and we'll go and go. So 3, 2, 1, go. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Legend of Spyro, The Eternal Night for the Game Boy Advance. First thing to get off the bat, we're doing this on easy difficulty. It's not because I'm a scrub, I promise. No, the real reason is there are 4 difficulties in this game. Easy, normal, hard, and dark mode. You only start off with easy, normal, selectable. Hard is unlocked by beating either normal or easy, and then dark is unlocked by beating hard. The only, aside from dark mode, which is a bit of a boring run, because that's basically just with God mode turned on, you're invincible and do stupid amounts of damage. The other modes just have higher enemy health and higher enemy damage. So it's just the same run, but it takes longer and is less interesting to watch because it's just more grinding. So that's why we're doing this on easy. So this is one of the 2D platforming games where we're going to be running through and jumping many collectibles as well as the relics. The relics are power-ups that can be found amongst the overworld, which will grant Spyro new abilities. And during this first tutorial level, we're going to be picking up plenty, but we've already run through and collected a good few by this point. So there'll be a few points where Spyro collapses during the story, and that's because the game is like half takes place in Spyro's dreams and half takes place in the real world. The first setup kind of thing is coming up here, where if we combo the guy from there, he'll just drop it straight on where we need to stand for the cutscene. If we could fight that guy anywhere else in the room, but then Spyro needs to walk all that way to the spot. So this is the first bit of like Spyro's dream temple thing. Here is the practice room, where we need to hit a 5-hit combo on the dummy. You unlock a lot of different power-ups depending on how many hits you do on the dummy. There's 5 is the minimum we need to do for here, which grants us access to a power-up for our combo. The second one is increased air combo. The third one for 15 is extra set of claws that deal elemental damage, which I'll get onto when we pick up an element. And the final one is the developer room, which gets you a bunch of experience, but that's 23, and that's pretty absurd to get without some of the later game power-ups. So another thing to note is that we are playing this game on Italian. This game was only released in 2 regions, America and Europe. This was not released in Japan, as it was actually released after the last Japanese Game Boy Advance game was released. So that limits our language choices, and with PAL we get a lot more options. The American version just has English and French as selections, whereas this we can choose between a lot of different European languages, and it just so happens to be that Italian saves a considerable amount of time over English. So here we're going to be collecting 2 of the main relics that we're going to use throughout this run. This is the sprint, where if I double tap then we can move pretty quickly, and here's the wall jump, which is going to allow us to scale some things quite easily. So we have an immediate problem with the charge, is that it requires a double tap, which when choosing what control style you want to use for this game, it makes a big difference. So generally I like to put it between using the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube controller, because that's your two main things for using when you're using a Game Boy player. I'm not a big fan of the triggers on the GameCube controller, which are used a lot in this game. But then you also need to do a lot of double tapping and like mashing, which isn't fantastic on the Game Boy Advance. So it's just choosing what you're least uncomfortable with, in my opinion. So here we're back in the overworld. We kind of left the temple, and we need to charge through. The charge presents a problem in itself because you can bonk on enemies, and bonking on an enemy will cause Spyro to do like a short backflip type maneuver, and then takes a minute before he actually starts moving again. So there's going to be some bits where we're actually going to not necessarily be sprinting all the time, just because there's a lot of enemies around. So here we go, Spyro's collapsed again, and we're back in his dream. So this is the first of the 4 elemental temples. So this is the fire temple, and we'll be collecting the fire power-up. So currently we can't actually breathe any fire, which isn't particularly useful as a dragon. So by going over here, we will meet the... I forget what this guy's called, I think he's like the Chronicler or something like that. Basically this is the one where we need to introduce ourselves to him to unlock the various power-ups in this game. Oh. There's the story behind that pillow, but I'm not going to tell it. We'll leave that for another day.
We'll leave it for another run.
Well, I know what we're gonna do after this run.
Yeah. So now that we have the power up, we'll notice we've got a new meter below our health. That is our energy meter. We use the energy to use our breath attacks. We unlock 4 breath attacks throughout the course of the game. The fire is the first one, followed by followed by ground, followed by ice, and then finally lightning near the end. And we can use it to do various different things. They all do different damage to enemies, and this game has a small type chart type system. But then there's also some doors which are only unlocked by casting a certain elemental breath on them. So this is the first boss. A lot of these bosses are just kind of health pools. They take a while to get through, but they're not particularly interesting. And they deal a lot of knockback, but not much damage, which is quite nice, which means we don't need to worry about dying too much. We can kind of just trap this guy in the corner and do an air combo in. We can't use the breath attack because fire does not affect fire, so it doesn't achieve much. Now you'll notice there have been a bunch of these little gem things falling on the ground. Unlike Spyro, they don't, like the original Spyro games, they don't serve as like a collectible in the game. In this game, those are your like regen items. So red ones will regenerate our health, green ones will regenerate our energy, blue ones will give us experience, which is completely relevant, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then the purple ones give us fury, which we're also not going to be using throughout this run. So I mentioned that we get experience, and we actually have an opportunity in this game to upgrade our breaths to the, like we can use the fire to breathe a constant stream of fire. We can upgrade the ice to freeze longer, and various other interesting things. Unfortunately, all of the upgrades are really expensive, and even when playing this game slow and casually, one playthrough of the game is barely enough to upgrade one of the breaths once. The way you generally achieve XP in this game is by doing high numbered combos. So the longer you keep a combo going, the more XP you get from enemies. But even being slow and taking combos into consideration, you still achieve very little XP throughout the game. So yeah, there's an example of bonking into an enemy, and it's just kind of, it's a bit slow. So there's a few different styles of enemies in this game. There's some of the weaker like grunt enemies that are along the ground, and they're just a bit of a pain, run into those a lot. There's some of the bit more bulky enemies which have large health pools, which generally we're just going to knock down with the earth power up as soon as we get it. And then there's the flying enemies. The flying enemies are almost objectively the most annoying, simply because they only die in one hit, which is a nice bit, but they have an incredible amount of knockback, and they're generally positioned in inconvenient places. Whereas normally we could just want to run and jump through an area. But there's a few places where we might need to slow down and kill one of the flying enemies first. So here we're coming up to the second temple in the game. This is the Earth Temple, where we're going to be collecting one of the most useful breaths in this run. This breath doesn't deal too much damage, but causes enemies to knock down, so we can just kind of run through them, which is really nice. A lot of these dungeons are set up like labyrinths where there are a lot of a maze, but when it's just when you already know where stuff is, a lot of the stuff isn't too far out of the way, so it's quite easy to get to. So there we go. There we got the Earth Breath now, so now we can switch between them whenever we want. So say we can cast that, and then it knocks the spiky turtle guy over. Have to go over here, and jump all the way back up, and then all the way to the right. Yeah. A few of these enemies have wake-up animations, where their hitbox isn't active until they're fully standing up, which means generally during a sprint we can actually not be concerned about enemies because when they actually stand up is based on proximity, and if we're sprinting we're usually going fast enough to not have to worry about those. So here we just need to climb up. I'm going to do a wall jump up there, save a bit of time. Next is down here. This is the section with all these mushroom bits, and it's a bit strange. So yeah, so those sparky enemies, we'll be seeing a bit more of those later, as they actually do play a part in a later boss fight, but those share just properties to the flying enemies I described earlier. So this is the second boss, the earth golem type creature. We're just going to wait for him to attack and then roll away. Mistimed that there. But if you time it perfectly, you can just roll away as soon as he's about to strike. There we go, and we can just run off to the edge and wait for that. So there we see two characters, Gaul and the Advisor. Gaul is the big bad guy in this game. He'll be the final boss near the end. And the Advisor is this ninja type character who we're going to fight a few times. It's a boss that they decided was so much fun, we should fight him 3 times. So near the boss rush near the end of the game, we are going to see that guy a few times. So here's where I mentioned the flying enemies get a bit annoying, so we're going to spend some time just killing those here. So we can do a little sequence break thing here by jumping up here, and we skip a huge segment of that level where you kind of need to jump all the way back to the left. And there you need to melt that with a fire. The Earth Breath will not do. So there's a power-up that the task gets along here, which we haven't quite worked into the route yet. That is the air dash, which is similar to a sprint, but allows you to do it in the air. The amount of time it saves is currently under question, because with the task they don't, they can perfectly weave in between all the enemies in the air, whereas we don't have that level of precision. And it does take a significant amount of time to actually get to it. So that's currently being evaluated. However, it's been worked into the route that we actually go a little bit out of our way here to collect a power-up. So there are 2 power-ups in this game which just flat out increase the amount of damage Spyro does. This is one of them. We're going to be collecting both, as it allows us to skip a few cycles on bosses. There's also all these crystals along the ground. These are generally just little health pools, which once you destroy them will grant you some health or energy, and generally appear during boss levels as well. So this is just a long forest segment, there's not too much going on here. There's this egg. I'm not sure why they put this egg in it. It's the only thing like this in this game, and it's just so much health, and we just kind of need to mash away at it. The bugs become really annoying because they just keep knocking us away from it. However, luckily the bugs all spawn near the bottom, so if you get lucky with it spawning on the left as opposed to the right, you can actually kill the bugs as soon as they spawn, in addition to hitting the egg, which is really useful. The power wheel wasn't particularly important. I believe it's just an air combo, of which we're not going to be doing too many air combos in this game. So yeah, we use the earth power-up to knock down that little bug thing there. It's a bit okay. Luckily in this game, dying is not a huge setback. Generally just sets you back to the beginning of the room you're in, and falling in water and such will just take away a small portion of your health. So this is the next boss of the game, Naga. Naga has a shield, and it's the first time we're going to see a boss who's invulnerable during some times. So at some points the boss's health bar will turn blue with a shield on them, at which points they cannot be dealt damage. However, Naga is unique in the sense that his shield can actually be broken as the shield has a health pool in itself, and by destroying the shield that grants us a lot of energy which helps kill Naga, as well as takes away Naga's ability to be invulnerable. So currently we're just going to be trying to hit away, and then they've got a big sword which we just need to go and dodge. So yeah, right now we're just trying to take down the shield so we can kill them as quickly as possible. The rocks that fall from the sky, we just kind of need to hope they're not anywhere near us. There's the shield gone, so now we can use the earth power up to do a combo, just lock them in place and combo them down. There we go. Another unique thing about Naga is the only boss in the game where we need to actually collect all the XP to finish the boss fight, otherwise it just doesn't end. So here come the pirates again, and I believe this is where they capture us, I think. So I've never actually paid too much attention to the story. I only watched one other runner play this, and we found out pretty early that Italian was the fastest language, and I've never actually played this game casually. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on. All I know is we're getting captured by monkey pirates. I'm not kidding. I had to look this game up in the wiki once, and it made a lot more sense until I actually did some reading on it. So yeah, so we're on their pirate ship, and we are now being captured. So the Earth Breath is going to be a huge hand here, which is going to allow us to knock down these enemies and just run past them. There's these doors. These doors just require 5 hits to get through. There we go. Now we jump up here. I don't like that enemy. He just kind of gets in my way a bunch. And no one else seems to have problems with him but me. But yeah, there we go. Now we can do a jump off here to save jumping all the way to the right. The last type of enemies which are new here is the dog enemy type things. They're very similar to the flying enemies in which they just take a single hit, but they have an absurd quantity of knockback, which makes them a pain to navigate around. So this is one of the first arenas in the game. So basically we just get pitted against 3 different enemies and we need to fight them. Luckily none of them actually stand a threat. The way we're going to go about this is we're going to use the knockback from the fire breath to try and knock them down at the same place so we can hit them all at the same time. That's good. Let's see if we can get them down. So now they should all come to me and should make this pretty easy. Almost. Okay. This last guy. There we go. Now we just need to pick up the relic there, and that's us complete this level. So now we're going to fall asleep, and we end up in the 3rd temple, which is the ice temple, which, as you can imagine, ice physics, a lot of fun. We can also use the ice breath we use to freeze water, which is actually a really fun mechanic. So this level can go really well or really badly. There's a bit near the end where if we fall we lose a significant amount of time, but hopefully that should not happen. So here we go, we've gone and collected the ice breath now. So we're probably going to be going between all 3 breaths in this one. We're going to be using the earth one to knock down enemies, we're going to be using the fire one whenever we need to deal damage, and we'll be using the ice one to navigate water. So yeah, now we just need to navigate back up to where we were. The ice physics are slightly more cooperative than you'd actually expect. It does feel surprisingly nice playing through, and it's fairly intuitive as well. So here we're going to use the ice power up and jump down this pit and use the breath attack down. So Spyro controls really well in this game, and he's really cooperative with what you want to do. If you want to fire an ice breath straight down the way, he will do it. And the control is very similar to like a beat 'em up game. And it just works, and it's a really satisfying game to play through because of that. So here we're going to hover, and there's a huge huge pit of water below which we're going to use the ice on to navigate. So we can do a air attack down. If you do an air attack down the way, Spyro does a ground pound type maneuver, and if you hold down a diagonal, he'll actually do it at an angle, which is useful for there and just there. So this is the ice boss. We're just going to try do something similar to the fire boss, in which we're just going to hit him into the corner and do our best to deal as much damage as we can, as fast as we can. He's being slightly uncooperative today. He's definitely one of the least consistent bosses throughout the entire game, and is not particularly fun to play through. Right, so now we're going to head back to the airship. We have another arena, followed by the first of many advisor fights. Yeah, unfortunately there's no particularly fast way to leave the temple once we're back there. I wish there was also kind of a way to skip the text. It's not particularly fun to mash through all of this, but the only skippable cutscenes are the ones which are like the actual animated cutscenes. So we're going to do something similar here. There's this caster guy. Casters are a pain in the ass in this game. They just really get in the way, and their bullet will home onto you and will follow you as long as the bullet is on screen. So if the bullet's fired towards you when you're kind of running away from it, it will just carry on forever. So there we unlock the Fury power up. Basically what that means is Spyro gains infinite breath attacks. He is temporarily invincible. Well, he's not invincible, but he has an incredible regeneration and highly increased attack speed and movement speed. Unfortunately, once again, we're not actually going to be collecting enough to make that usable. So this is the advisor. We're going to try juggle him as best as we can. If I do everything correctly, he will always jump behind. Well, he will always roll behind me. So if I do that, then we should be able to lead him into a combo. Hopefully. He will cooperate. Sometimes the advisor will just not cooperate, and there's not much you can do as opposed to just try your best to recover the juggle. And there we go, there's the advisor fight. We'll only be doing that 2 more times, so don't worry if you missed that. So, I believe this dragon is Ignitus. I believe this is who we're actually coming here to rescue. I'm not incredibly sure. So now we need to escape the ship because now the dragons are taking over. So there'll be a short segment where we're inside the ship trying to get out, and then followed by a brief outside segment followed by a boss. Dropping down here, and there's enemies. There we go. Okay, we're outside now, which is fantastic. So there's going to be a brief bit where we're jumping across from platform to platform. Just need to remember to not go too out the way. If you take the top route, that's where a lot of the hidden items are. However, we don't need any of those, so we should just stick to the bottom path as much as we can, so that we're not trying to jump around a lot of enemies who are protecting those power-ups. So this is the next boss. I can't remember his name, to be honest. So, but he has a short phase where he's invincible, so we can't actually deal any damage during this time. You can only damage him once you hit back one of these cannonballs at him. This boss is probably also one of the more RNG heavy bosses in the game. So you'll notice he took out a pistol at the beginning. So it's RNG if he takes out the pistol or not, and how many bullets he fires if he does. So we're actually getting pretty lucky here, and he's not doing it too much. But yeah, that can make a huge difference between whether this fight takes a short time or a long time relatively. Also, the power-up we got earlier, which increases our damage, allows us to get this boss in either 3 or 4 cycles. It's looking like, I think that was... yeah, there's definitely going to be like 4 or 5, I think. I've been counting them too well. But yeah, this should kill him just hitting him like that. Okay, good. The flying enemy can also make the difference of us making the 3 or 4 cycler or not, because if he spawns to the right of the enemy, then we can hit the flying enemy along with the boss. However, otherwise we need to turn around to hit him. So this is the final elemental temple. This is the lightning temple. So this is going to be the other power-up we're collecting, which will grant us an additional damage upgrade. So we're going to use the Earth Breath there just to knock that guy down, so we don't need to worry about him. Alright, shall I keep it going, or are we going to pause? Yeah, pause now. Alright.
Is it possible that too many people are in the internet Wi-Fi?
Yes. I'm not going to do Wi-Fi, so...
Make sure I'm connected.
Alright, so if most of the people can switch the data, that's great.
I'll turn Wi-Fi off.
already on data.
Alright.
Hey.
Connection successful.
We're back.
Just
Alright.
ask. Are we live again?
Yeah, we're at.
So now we have a stop in the first one.
We were stopped. Okay, yeah. So, countdown again to continue.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright, apologies about that intermission, folks. Having some technical difficulties here. So we're still at the Lightning Temple, just where we left off. So here we're going to come along and collect the lightning power-ups. So this is the final elemental breath that we're going to be collecting, aside from the one we get the final boss, which you're going to see for about maybe 10 seconds. So if I line the wall jump up here, we can just jump straight up. So the lightning breath is going to be one we're not going to be using too much throughout this run. It does a lot of stun and knockback. However, none of those things are particularly helpful when we're fighting enemies. Aside from the final boss, but once again, I'll get onto the final boss when we get to it. So I'm going to be switching to the Earth Breath here. The Earth Breath does a lot of stun, and it's essentially super effective against this boss here. So this boss has a long invincibility phase where it just kind of flies about the screen, and then we'll spawn a bunch of those wispy enemies. And if we get good RNG with the wispy enemies, we can actually one-cycle this boss. However, that is relatively rare. But we'll go for it. Almost. Okay, we almost got it. So we're going to need to wait for the second phase to come up in a second. There we go. Yeah, we were 3 hits away there. That's a shame. Yeah, it all comes down to those flying enemies. They can really get in your way. If you get good RNG with where they spawn, you can do that fight relatively easily in just a single phase, but otherwise you need to wait for the second life. So now that we've collected all the damage power-ups, we're going to be dealing a significant portion of damage to all the enemies from here on out. There's not too much of the game left to go at this point. There is the final temple, which is the Celestial Temple. That is what it was. So this one's not particularly fun to navigate. It's a lot of enemies, and some spawns are RNGs, so hopefully we get good spawns. Switching to Ice Breath here because for some reason up here there's an ice door, and I'm not quite sure why, and it's not particularly fitting in any way. It's just kind of in your way, like there. That doesn't look like it belongs. So I'm going to switch back to Earth here. So those are the big snail enemies. We fought one of them earlier, but I didn't particularly explain it. They don't really deal any damage, and are just insane like health drain. So it takes a long time to kill them. Now there's a few points we're coming up to here where there's a chance one can spawn, and there's 2 bits. Okay, so we got 1 bad bit there. So, okay, we're good. So if they're in a position where like left and right, where you're far enough away from the spikes to just be hit by them and you still to be okay, then we can actually just run straight through them. Otherwise we kind of get trapped like we are just now. Unfortunately we got really unlucky spawns and there was no circumstance where we could just run past them, aside from that first bit, but that's okay. So this is the second advisor, same as the first advisor, but he just has a little bit more health. So, same juggle we can use here as we did for the first one. So the advisor has many attacks, most of which we hopefully won't be seeing. One of which is a clone attack where he'll essentially replace himself with a wooden statue thing, which if you attack it deals damage to you, and he will be elsewhere, which fades over time. We also hopefully just get lucky and he just laughs. Sometimes he'll taunt you, which is a fantastic way to catch up if you somehow drop the juggle. Right, there we go. So yeah, we need to collect this relic to actually leave this room, otherwise the door will not open. And that just increases our maximum energy. So there is a large quantity of relics in this game. I believe there's somewhere in the realms of 45 in total. So Spyro can be significantly more powerful by this stage in the game. However, a lot of them are very out of the way and require level revisits. So there's a tight jump coming up here. There we go. And luckily we had the iframes from the roll, so we could dodge that shot that was fired at us. So here we're coming to the end of the Celestial Temple. So we can navigate past the sky. That was some very lucky knockback. The fly hit us right onto the other side. So now we're just coming up the stairs, and this is where usually, if I had a GameCube controller, it'd be really nice just to mash through, but I always hate how because sometimes it doesn't connect, right? Yeah, I see that's there, but I hate switching between controllers during a run. I've tried doing it once, and it feels really awkward, but yeah. But yeah, there's just a lot of text there. Oh, I entered the wrong level. There we go. So this is the final little bit of the game. So here we need to fight the advisor once more, and it's basically the same as the last time. It's about as hard, and it takes about as much time. I just need to focus on keeping my juggle up here. Almost. The advisor is being surprisingly uncooperative today, unfortunately, but should be good. Because you need to get the distance from the fire breath on him just right. If he's a bit too far away, you don't have enough time to approach him to initiate the combo. It's a bit of a shame. There we go. Advisor 3 is down, so now all that remains is the final boss of the game, Gaul. Now, Gaul has many points of the fight in which he's invincible, and he also has a heal phase where he can heal himself back to full health. Now, if I can get this, you can stun lock the boss Gaul by using the lightning power up and well-timed combos, and we can entirely skip the heal phase. It saves a significant amount of time, maybe somewhere in the realms of like 20 to 30 seconds. So it's not the end of the world if we don't get it, but hopefully if I get this it will. So basically when Gaul gets below a certain percentage of health, that will tell his AI to start trying to do the heal phase. However, if we get this right, we can chunk him fast enough. This used to be really hard until we started routing in the damage paradox. Okay, we didn't quite get it there, so he's healing him back up to full, but he's not going to do that again. Depending on the difficulty you play on decides how many heal phases he does. In hard mode, which is the hardest mode in the game, he will do 5 heal phases, which basically means you need to kill the boss 5 times, which is crazy, considering you don't get many health pickups during this fight. So there's the final boss down. Time isn't for a little bit more. So basically at this point, Spyro obtains this dark energy, which allows him to actually kill Gaul. And then we need to fight like a swarm of enemies, and time will be coming up once we defeat the final enemy in that swarm, which is when the camera kind of like, the UI all goes away and the camera starts fading. Oh, sorry, starts panning. So yeah, in Dark Spyro, we can just mash him. Once, by defeating by defeating hard mode, you actually unlock Dark Spyro to play the full game with. But we're not going to be doing that, mostly because it's pretty boring. So all the enemies can spawn from the right hand side, so we can just mash here. Time will be coming in a second. There, time. So yeah, that was Spyro the Eternal Night. In about 2006 or so, every game company decided, hey, let's reboot all our franchises. And all things considered, I think Spyro got a good shot. There were a lot of good Legend of Spyro games. There can be said for a lot of games that came out in that general reboot era. I won't name any names, but yeah, no, Spyro was pretty good. So the game is just going to be finishing up here. We just have a little second. I love showing off the ending cutscene, if we can get to that pretty quickly. Smash through all this. So yeah, so Spyro encapsulates himself in Crystal and saves both him and Cinder. So yeah, then we have the credits. Hunter is running along the screen. Hunter isn't in this game. I don't think Hunter's in this series. Hunter was that big, like, I mean, he was in a bunch of, like, he was in the OG trilogy, and he was in, like, the Hero's Tale and such. I'm, like, 90% sure, I'm not, like, he definitely isn't in the Game Boy Advance games, I know that. I don't know if he's in the console ones, but he's in the credits. But yeah, that was Spyro the Eternal Night. Thank you for watching.
Alright, that was The Legend of Spyro The Eternal Night GBA. Sorry again for the technical difficulties, but yeah, that's a speedrun marathon. Hashtag sorry not sorry. We are working on fixing and preventing those. In the meantime, I don't know if I have told you the full story. In the last intermission, I told you that I wanted to post a picture on the UKSG Twitter account and found out that Paulister's Discord was Greek. Yeah, it wasn't for long. Since then I just decided, okay, I can't work with Greek, so I switched his Discord language to German, which is the language I speak and I'm familiar with. And yeah, I was able to download the picture from his Twitter, from his Discord, and upload it on Twitter. And then like half an hour or maybe even an hour later, he came in, heavy breathing, and he was like, "Who changed my Discord language to German?" Because apparently, I not only changed his like actual PC Discord language, but also his Discord language on his mobile phone, which was quite hilarious. But definitely one of the highlights. Yeah. Looking to our tech guy, I think we can run. Okay. Tech seems ready that we run a quick ad. And yeah, so we're gonna run a quick ad, and after that we gonna be back with more CD-Romatron. And I mean, we saw Spyro, and who are we missing? Exactly, Crash Bandicoot 2 entranced after this. Yeah, quick ad, and then we are right